settlements in South suburban Dalton today. First, the state comptroller has suspended some payments to the village because it has failed to follow the law by providing financial relief.
You could feel the anger tonight at a Board of Trustees meeting in Thornton Township. The board and citizens looking for accountability to their finances.
Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, Illinois, has once again found herself at the center of a scandal. And this time, the situation is so baffling that it's left many questioning her competence and priorities. As a public servant with a salary reportedly exceeding $300,000 annually, Henyard's financial troubles seem incomprehensible, especially when recent reports reveal that she is facing eviction for non-payment of rent. Despite earning a substantial income, she is reportedly several months behind on her rent payments, raising the obvious question: how could someone with her earnings fall so far behind on such a fundamental expense? The story, however, grows even more perplexing and concerning as it unravels. Henyard's time in office has been marked by controversy, with her leadership drawing sharp criticism for what many see as a pattern of questionable decisions, mismanagement, and personal gain over the interests of the community she's supposed to serve. From early on, Henyard presented herself as a bold, self-styled super mayor, but her tenure has been marred by a series of dubious financial choices. Reports have surfaced about lavish spending on personal items, including Amazon shopping sprees and extravagant trips. The use of public funds has been scrutinized, with critics accusing Henyard of prioritizing her own interests while neglecting the needs of the town. Public projects under her leadership have also raised eyebrows, with some questioning their legitimacy and whether they truly benefit the residents of Dalton. Amid these growing allegations of corruption and mismanagement, Henyard's personal financial troubles have added a new layer of complexity to an already fraught situation. The eviction notice she's received only deepens the scrutiny surrounding her leadership and paints a troubling picture of her ability to manage both her public duties and personal affairs. For many, this latest development serves as a stark symbol of the disconnect between Henyard's public persona and the reality of her financial instability. It's hard to ignore the irony of someone in such a high-profile, well-compensated position struggling to meet the most basic of financial obligations. As the controversy continues to unfold, residents and political analysts alike are left grappling with the implications of Henyard's leadership. How could someone who holds such an influential position be so detached from reality? How could someone with so many resources fall into such disarray? These questions remain unanswered, and the situation only seems to spiral further out of control. With mounting allegations of mismanagement, financial chaos, and a lack of accountability, it's unclear how or if Henyard will be able to salvage her reputation and her term in office. For now, the story of Henyard's financial troubles continues to unfold, leaving many wondering just how much worse it could get.
Be a little messy, but it's just something we felt important that had to be done, that should be done. So, but like I said, yeah, just...
Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, Illinois, who reportedly earns over $300,000 annually, is now facing yet another bewildering controversy, this time concerning her personal finances. It has recently come to light that Henyard is 3 months behind on her rent payments, an amount that many would find astonishing given her significant salary. The rent in question is not for an extravagant mansion, but a monthly fee of $11,100, a sum that seems relatively modest when compared to her income. So how could someone earning such a substantial salary fall behind on such a basic and manageable expense? Adding to the complexity of the situation, Henyard's name isn't the only one listed on the lease for the property. Her associate, Smallwoods, is also tied to the rental agreement, a connection that only deepens the intrigue surrounding the matter. Woods, who has been involved in other controversies alongside Henyard, raises further questions about the nature of their financial arrangement. Speculation has already begun, with some suggesting the possibility of subletting, hidden financial struggles, or even some form of mismanagement in their shared responsibilities. The financial missteps of these two figures only complicate the already murky waters surrounding Henyard's personal finances. Critics of Henyard are particularly frustrated by this development, viewing it as another glaring example of her inability to effectively manage financial matters, something that is all the more concerning considering her role as the mayor of a town. How could someone in her position, earning far more than the average Dalton household, struggle with such a basic expense? For detractors, This revelation casts doubt not only on Henyard's personal financial priorities, but also on her competence as a public servant entrusted with managing the town's budget and resources. While Henyard's supporters might attempt to downplay the situation, suggesting that there are extenuating circumstances behind the missed payments, the facts remain troubling. The public's skepticism only deepens when considering the involvement of Woods, whose connection to Henyard raises questions about whether there might be a more complex financial situation at play, possibly even subletting or shared financial obligations that have spiraled out of control. As rumors swirl and questions mount, many are left wondering whether this situation is simply an unfortunate personal misstep or a reflection of broader issues that have plagued Henyard's time in office. Her leadership has already been marked by allegations of corruption, misuse of public funds, and personal financial scandals. And now this latest controversy seems to reinforce the narrative of poor financial judgment and a lack of transparency that critics argue has defined her tenure. The revelation that Henyard is struggling with such a basic financial obligation, despite her substantial salary, only serves to erode further the public's confidence in her leadership. For residents of Dolton, this latest development is not just a personal failing. It's yet another example of how Henyard's decision-making has been questioned and criticized throughout her time in office. As the story unfolds, many are left to wonder how much more the community will have to endure as they try to make sense of the mess behind closed doors, and whether Henyard's financial troubles will be the final straw for her already embattled leadership.
Finding of an investigation of village finances and the spending habits of the leader.
Things took a more complicated turn on September 18th, when an eviction notice was officially issued to Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard and her associate, Kamal Woods, giving them just 5 days to vacate their rental property due to a past due rent balance of approximately $3,350. Henyard's attorney quickly sprang into action, claiming the eviction was based on false pretenses, arguing that there was no legitimacy to the claims against her client. However, this defense only raised more questions and intensified the confusion surrounding the situation. Was Henyard denying that she signed the lease, as her attorney suggested, or was she claiming that the rent had already been paid? If the allegations were fabricated, why had they surfaced in the first place? And what evidence could support either side of the argument? This lack of clarity has only fueled public outrage and speculation, further casting doubt on Henyard's already shaky financial reputation. For critics, this eviction saga is merely the latest chapter in a long history of scandals tied to Henyard's leadership, one marked by allegations of financial mismanagement, corruption, and self-indulgence at the expense of Dolton's residents. Her name has repeatedly appeared in the headlines, not for positive reasons, but for questionable financial decisions and behavior that have raised serious concerns about her ability to lead responsibly. Accusations have long swirled around Henyard, alleging that she consistently prioritized her own indulgences over the needs of the community. Reports of her lavish spending have included extravagant trips to destinations like Las Vegas, where she reportedly splurged on luxuries and accommodations that raised eyebrows, especially in a community where many residents struggle financially. These personal expenditures seem out of touch with the economic realities of Dolton, where the average household income is far lower than Henyard's reported earnings. The criticisms don't stop at her travel habits. Henyard has also been accused of frivolous spending on public events, such as a recent street party in Dolton that cost tens of thousands of dollars. While some supporters argue that such events help foster community spirit, detractors label them as vanity projects aimed at boosting Henyard's public image, rather than addressing the real needs of her constituents. The eviction notice now serves as a microcosm of Henyard's embattled time in office, illustrating the blurry lines between her personal and public financial responsibilities. Allegations of unpaid rent and false pretenses only echo the larger concerns about how Henyard has handled Dolton's finances. Investigations into her administration's spending habits are ongoing, and early findings suggest questionable transactions and a lack of accountability in the village's budget. This most recent issue with rent fits neatly into a larger pattern of behavior that critics argue shows a continued misuse of public funds for private purposes. Henyard's financial choices, such as dubious credit card charges, extravagant Amazon purchases with taxpayer money, and unchecked spending, have already raised red flags. In this context, the eviction notice adds fuel to the fire, deepening public skepticism about her financial judgment and integrity. Henyard's critics have long argued that her pattern of financial mismanagement reflects a broader failure in leadership, one that prioritizes her own desires over the needs of Dolton's residents. If Henyard, earning more than $300,000 a year, cannot manage basic expenses like rent, how can she be trusted with overseeing the complexities of a town's budget? Adding another layer of intrigue to this situation is Kamal Woods, Henyard's associate, whose presence in the eviction saga has raised questions about whether personal or financial connections are influencing the situation. While the full details remain unclear, the lack of transparency continues to plague Henyard's administration, fueling suspicions about the true nature of the circumstances behind the eviction. As investigators continue to probe Henyard's financial decisions, the eviction saga has only amplified the public's frustration and disillusionment with her leadership. For many, this unfolding drama is just the latest sign that Henyard's tenure is characterized by a pattern of poor financial judgment, a lack of accountability, and a troubling disregard for the financial well-being of the community she is supposed to serve.
Anything that's related to the credit card. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting, I did not have it.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
When someone in public office, tasked with managing taxpayer dollars, falls behind on something as basic as paying rent for 3 consecutive months, it raises questions that go far beyond mere financial oversight. The case of Mayor Tiffany Henyard's eviction is prompting speculation that there may be deeper financial troubles at play, or perhaps even a more deliberate strategy. If someone responsible for overseeing public funds cannot manage personal obligations like paying $11,100 in monthly rent, it begs the question, what is really happening behind the scenes? Is Henyard facing a financial crisis, or could this be a calculated move? Some have suggested that Henyard may be intentionally creating an appearance of financial struggle as a defensive strategy. The theory goes that by positioning herself as someone unable to afford rent, she could deflect claims of embezzling public funds, suggesting, if I were stealing taxpayer money, why can't I even pay my rent? While this is speculative, for someone with Henyard's contentious history, even far-fetched ideas start to seem plausible. This latest chapter in her embattled career adds to a long-running narrative of legal and financial controversies. Public records reveal that Henyard has been entangled in legal and financial disputes for over a decade, with dozens of cases, both settled and ongoing, dating back to 2012. These cases cover a wide range of issues, from bank loans to personal financial obligations, creating a pattern of trouble managing finances that has persisted throughout her career. The legal cloud hovering over her only adds to the drama surrounding her current eviction. The timing of the eviction notice, issued in September, marks yet another controversy in Henyard's already turbulent tenure. But what makes this situation even murkier are the rumors swirling around the property in question. Some whispers suggest that Henyard does not actually live in the home for which she owes $3,350 in overdue rent. Instead, it has been speculated that the house might be a trap house, not in the musical sense, but potentially linked to illicit activities. While these claims remain unproven, the refusal of Henyard and her associate, Kamal Woods, to allow the property owner to perform inspections only fuels suspicions. Typically, standard lease agreements allow landlords access for routine checks, but Henyard's outright denial has raised red flags. Why block inspections unless there's something to hide? The lack of transparency surrounding the property has intensified doubts, especially considering Wood's involvement. As a known associate of Henyard with a checkered past, his connection only deepens the web of uncertainty surrounding the situation. Could this property be tied to activities Henyard and Woods are trying to keep under wraps? Or is this simply another example of financial mismanagement? The lack of answers leaves plenty of room for speculation, further amplifying public distrust of Henyard's leadership. The timing couldn't be worse for Henyard, whose tenure has already been tarnished by allegations of corruption, financial mismanagement, and personal extravagance. Critics have long accused Henyard of blurring the lines between personal finances and public responsibilities, citing her lavish spending habits, such as extravagant trips and costly community events, as evidence of her disregard for fiscal accountability. The eviction fits into this broader narrative of financial missteps, raising alarms about how she manages both personal and public funds. Allegations of misuse of public funds have plagued Henyard's administration, with some of the most glaring examples including reports of her spending tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars on personal luxuries. Perhaps the most notorious example is the $43,000 Amazon shopping spree charged to the Village accounts, a spending habit that perfectly illustrates concerns about her fiscal management. These personal indulgences, coupled with her hosting of expensive events under the guise of community building, paint a picture of a leader who seems disconnected from the financial realities of her constituents. The current eviction dispute is yet another troubling snapshot of Henyard's approach to financial accountability, or lack thereof. While her supporters might argue that the situation has been blown out of proportion, or that rumors are baseless, the pattern of behavior is difficult to ignore. The story of unpaid rent for an $11,100 per month property directly contradicts the image of someone earning over $300,000 a year, further eroding public confidence in her ability to manage finances. For the residents of Dolton, this situation reinforces long-standing frustrations with leadership that seems increasingly out of touch with the struggles of everyday citizens. With an average household income far lower than Henyard's salary, the disconnect between her financial reality and that of her constituents only deepens. As the details of this eviction continue to unfold, it's worth considering what this means for Henyard's standing as a leader. The situation has already raised serious questions about her ability to manage both personal and public financial responsibilities, and the growing skepticism surrounding her leadership may only continue to grow.
That's what the trustees I talked to are calling this. They say the news took them by surprise, and now they're talking to legal counsel.
Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dolton, Illinois, finds herself caught in a storm of controversy that extends far beyond her recent missed rent payments. A Freedom of Information Act request has reportedly uncovered troubling accounting practices within a grant project overseen by Woods, raising serious new concerns about financial mismanagement during her administration. Allegations now point to the mishandling of public grants, including funds meant for youth programs, casting doubt on how taxpayer dollars have been allocated under Henyard's leadership. Financial records are said to reveal multiple payments made to individuals and organizations without clear justification. One glaring example is a payment of over $66,000 to Anthony Butler, with no explanation provided for the expenditure. This is just one of many irregularities that suggest Henyard's financial troubles go far beyond overdue rent payments. These discrepancies point to deeper, systemic issues within Dolton's financial governance, leaving many to question how such mismanagement could persist under the leadership of someone entrusted with public resources. The revelations have left members of the Dolton Board of Trustees stunned, and they are now seeking legal counsel to understand the ramifications and determine the next steps. The mounting accusations are prompting widespread concern about how such alleged mismanagement could have occurred, especially under the leadership of a mayor tasked with overseeing the town's finances. Henyard's response to these allegations has been to portray herself as the victim of a political smear campaign. Through her attorney, she has dismissed the growing scandal as a deliberate attempt by the Board of Trustees to tarnish her reputation and undermine the will of the people. She accuses the trustees of dishonestly working to discredit her administration and seize power. However, her counter-narrative has done little to quell the mounting criticism. With an expanding federal investigation into financial irregularities and a growing number of allegations of fiscal impropriety, Henyard's claims of victimhood are increasingly difficult for the public to accept. Public skepticism is palpable, with many finding Henyard's explanations out of step with the mounting evidence of mismanagement. Her leadership style, long criticized for self-aggrandizement, is now being scrutinized for its failure to properly manage public funds. While Henyard still retains some support among her inner circle, public sentiment in Dolton is shifting drastically against her. Many residents have expressed frustration, calling her tenure a failure filled with scandals, and some have even begun to refer to her as America's worst mayor, a title that underscores the depth of their disillusionment. The perception of incompetence and corruption has only been fueled by Henyard's administration's failure to maintain transparency or provide satisfactory answers about the allocation of public funds. While she continues to claim her innocence and point fingers at political adversaries, Henyard has failed to address the specific concerns raised by the financial discrepancies that are now under federal scrutiny. Her refusal to be held accountable has created an atmosphere of distrust, leaving many Dolton residents wondering how the village ended up in such a dire situation under her leadership. Beyond Henyard's rhetoric and deflection, the facts paint a troubling picture of mismanagement. The alleged financial irregularities cast doubt on the oversight mechanisms in place during her term. Observers point out that several payments from public grants meant for community development appear to have been misallocated or spent without adequate justification. For instance, the reported $66,000 payment to Anthony Butler is just one example of a broader pattern of questionable spending that has sparked outrage among Dolton residents, who are now demanding greater transparency and accountability from their mayor. The evasion of financial scrutiny is not a new issue for Henyard's administration, but the recent revelations have struck a chord with the community. Residents feel betrayed by a leader they once trusted to prioritize the welfare of Dolton citizens. Adding to the public frustration is the widespread perception that Henyard has been more focused on maintaining her personal image than on addressing the real needs of her constituents. Town hall meetings have seen a significant increase in attendance, with residents passionately voicing their dissatisfaction and demanding answers.
Placed late last year without any approval from the village board. So now Robert Collins is...
Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dolton, Illinois, finds herself at the center of a growing scandal that extends well beyond her unpaid rent and grant mismanagement. The FBI is reportedly investigating her alleged exploitation of public funds for private gain, including hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on her security detail. Additionally, a federal inquiry into her financial expenditures is ongoing, casting further doubt on her handling of public money. One particularly controversial issue involves the police overtime claims tied to her security, some of which were reportedly incurred while she was out of town, even for personal reasons. At a time when Henyard is already under investigation for questionable spending, these security expenses only add fuel to the fire. It's no surprise that many Dolton residents are calling for her resignation. However, like with past scandals, Henyard refuses to step down quietly. She has insisted that she is being unfairly targeted because of her position as a woman in authority and a member of a boys' club that is allegedly intent on hindering her success. Whether or not her accusations hold merit, the facts are clear. Henyard is under investigation, facing eviction, and her financial dealings remain highly questionable. Public reaction to Henyard's situation has been swift and unforgiving. Social media platforms and YouTube are flooded with angry comments from residents expressing disbelief over the mayor's actions. One commenter stated that Henyard doesn't pay bills at all unless taxpayers are footing the bill. Given the numerous reports of Henyard using public funds for personal expenses, it's hard to argue with that sentiment. Another commenter speculated that Henyard might be using the current scandal to deflect accusations of stealing taxpayer money, asking, "Why don't I have enough to pay my rent?" This comment, while extreme, reflects how deeply public trust in Henyard has eroded. In fact, the perception is now so negative that people are willing to believe nearly anything about her, which is never helpful for any politician. The situation is further complicated by Henyard's upcoming eviction court date, scheduled for October 22. The looming question is whether she will be able to extricate herself from this mess, or if this marks the end of her political career. While only time will tell, it's clear that the ongoing revelations surrounding her only serve to deepen the web of accusations and controversies surrounding her. If the allegations of financial mismanagement and misuse of public grants prove true, Henyard could face serious legal consequences that go far beyond an eviction. As the FBI continues its investigation and more details emerge, it's becoming increasingly difficult to ignore the possibility of even more serious charges. One thing is certain: Dolton residents deserve answers. They want to know where their taxpayer money is going and why their mayor seems unable to manage her own finances. The question on everyone's mind is whether Tiffany Henyard will be able to recover from this scandal, or if this marks the beginning of the end of her political career. Stay tuned for more updates on this unfolding story as it continues to develop.